Hey guys, and welcome to the second installment of the Final Fantasy XIV Versus series. For today's video, we're going to be talking all about the tank role, which includes the Gunbreaker, Warrior, Dark Knight, and Paladin. The purpose of this video really is to try and go over all of the tanks and compare them within the tank role for their particular strengths and playstyle differences. I really don't want to say weaknesses because this is really going to be something that comes a lot down to preference rather than, oh, this is a weakness. This rotation's a little slower than this. You might prefer that. You'll get what I mean when I compare the Dark Knight's shields versus the Warrior's healing. So first thing is, if you're coming off from a different video in the Versus series, you're going to notice that I am tailoring each video to the specifics of that particular role. Like, I don't think talking about, oh, all of the tanks are all 100% going to be using personal DPS because they don't give it away buffing others. That's because that's not a concern about tanks. They're all the same in that. But what we will be looking at is we will be first taking a note on DPS, main tank or off tank, mitigation style, party utility, rotation speed and impressions, and personal take. So let's open up this video by escorting the elephant out of the room. DPS differences are within 3% on the tanks, roughly 3%, so I really do mean it when you shouldn't take damage into account of playing what you want to play for tanks. It is such a small difference that if it makes or breaks an enrage timer for your group, you had a lot of deaths or damage downs. Now I want to really focus on something that is very important to tanks, which is mitigation styles. And if you're wanting a very detailed look, including the numbers that I use to reach these conclusions, then check out my mitigation style video where I go deep dive into that topic specifically. For the purposes of this video though, I'm going to summarize the key takeaways and break this into chunks rather than one large swath, so please bear with me as I go into some detail. So when you're talking about higher end raid content like savage raids or ultimate raids, there comes up the concept of what is a main tank versus an off tank. I'll leave that to my tank guide to really explain that, but we have a preference for which tank should be in which spot. I'm going to say off the bat that all tanks are capable of off tanking and main tanking, but the currently generally accepted meta is that Warriors, Dark Knights, and Gunbreakers are going to be the preferred main tanks. Which one is the quote-unquote best option really does come down to the healer's preference. However, this does leave Paladin extremely far behind for main tanking specifically, which most high-end raiders, including the ones that I talked to that have actively done all the ultimate raids and are doing it on Twitch, are really agreeing that Paladin should be main tanking as little as possible. Even when you're doing tank swaps, you want to not keep the Paladin just being wailed on. However, if Paladin is on your radar, don't be discouraged, as Paladin with its boatloads of utility is currently the preferred off tank. Now when it comes to mitigation style, we really do have three different types. We have shields, we have heals, we have direct incoming damage reduction. When it comes to the tanks, the Warrior and Dark Knight are extremely far ahead of other tanks in the HPS department. Warrior does this mostly through powerful self-healing after damage is taken, and Dark Knight does it primarily through shielding themselves with the busted knight before damage comes in. Gunbreaker comes at it from a hybrid style. They're going to bring in some sustain through Aurora, and then they have a heal and barrier split with Brutal Shell. But when we're talking pure HPS numbers, the Gunbreaker is significantly lower than the Warrior's healing or the Dark Knight's shield. In terms of HPS numbers, it's significantly lower. The Gunbreaker, however, features a ton of mitigation skills to ease off the spikes of incoming damage, however, and looking at some of the numbers, they are a very smooth damage intake. Now, when we talk about the Paladin brings in no form of HPS self-sustain through either healing or barriers. Obviously it has its raid-wide barrier for mitigation, but that's not really something that you're going to be counting on as much as something like the Blackest Night. Paladin also features a smaller toolbox for self-mitigation options in spite of a notable passive shield block and Sheltron, which is unfortunately a very major reason in why I said that the Paladin is not necessarily the best off tank to take. You combine this in conjunction with Spirits Within scaling off of max health pool at the time of using the skill, and it's a little rough. When it comes to party utility, I need to be very upfront. All tanks bring a very significant amount, but since this is a comparison within the role, I'm going to skip all of that to get to the hardest hitting points comparing. Warrior's utility is okay relative to the Dark Knight or Gunbreaker, with its Nascent Glint bonus letting the main tank take less damage because it's not just a heal component, it also is a mitigation, but they also can stack their own cooldowns to provide a powerful party shield with Shake It Off. One of the problems though with Nascent Glint as an off tank is making sure that you can get the value out of the damage to HP conversion as well as that mitigation. Dark Knight's utility is raid-wide damage mitigation as well as the Blackest Night, and I've played the Dark Knights that have really impressed me with their use of this ability, as it's a shield that they can immediately apply to anyone in the group and can really save someone like me who may have messed up a mechanic maybe a few too many times, and then they can pre-apply the shield to make sure that I don't bonk myself with the mechanic. Just saying, I do like this as a utility option. It's something that I really do like, that big bursty shield build rather than just like the healing after the fact has saved me quite a bit. Another nice thing is that you don't need to worry about overhealing with this. That is definitely a huge perk of it. Gunbreaker's utility is raid-wide mitigation and then 2 separate skills, Heart of Light and Aurora, that lets targets take reduced damage and a solid trickle of healing, which since it's a trickle of healing, generally speaking, results in less overheal. I will note that Heart of Stone does also apply the Brutal Shell barrier to the target, which is a 200 HP barrier, something that's that impressive that I'm gonna go, oh my god, it's a 200 HP barrier. No. But if you're off tanking and using this ability often, you're gonna always have Brutal Shell up because you're not taking damage. Your Brutal Shell barrier is gonna be on yourself. You just apply it with Heart of Stone. If you keep using the Heart of Stone ability on the main tank, that is gonna add up. Now it's time to really talk about the utility king, the tank that has been labeled as the utility king by the community, which is the Paladin. And so Intervention is an ability that will raise a party member's defenses by a set amount, baseline 10%, apply it with Rampart or Sentinel, and it can boost that effect. But another strength of this is that say you have 100 oath gauge saved up, then you can stack the effect because now it's on that low 10-second cooldown timer, so it can be like bam, I apply this, bam, I apply it a second time, and then shortly after a third time. So the stacking of it really is something to note. Next up is Cover, which is truly an amazing ability that not enough people talk about, which redirects all damage someone takes to the Paladin themselves, which this skill is actually pretty amazing when the situation calls for it. Hollowed Ground I am going to actually put here as part of utility, and I know that's going to be controversial because everyone's going to be like, everyone has a cheese mechanic, but the problem is, or the perk for Paladin is that they take no damage. Any other tank's cheese ability is going to stress out a healer. Like Gunbreaker reduces their HP to 1. The Dark Knight will literally die if you don't fully cap out their HP. Or rather, I should be very careful here. You need to heal 100% of the Dark Knight's maximum HP in the Living Dead window in order to make sure that they don't die to the debuff. You don't actually need to hit 100%. I know that someone will call me out in the comment section. So for me, the Hollowed Ground Paladin skill is definitely a huge perk. Now for raid-wide damage, Paladin actually gets 2 skills rather than 1. They get Divine Veil, that is going to be a party-wide shield, and then Passage of Arms, which Passage of Arms is a little misunderstood by a lot of people. It is very bonkers strong if the Paladin knows how to time it and basically weave it at the damage component rather than just holding it for excessive amounts of time. Like if you see your Paladin just hunker down there, waiting 10 seconds for the AoE damage to come out, they're not using it right. They should try and just use it right before that time comes out, get the mitigation on the party, and then right after the damage, stop it. It's very pretty though, I will say that. And lastly, Clemency, I will add here, can actually be an actual game changer for raid progression situations where, yeah, that heal, this Clemency, you should never cast it because it does mess up your rotation. But I'm going to kind of interject here. See what I did there, tanks? You know what I did there. But I'm going to interject here with saying that I would rather the Paladin take a DPS hit during a raid progression than just worry about their damage. Like, if we're progressing through the raid and you could save the raid but you didn't, I'd be like, why? Dude. Like, one instance that you will encounter in progression raiding is, say you have a summoner on the team, they're still alive but barely, they revived the scholar, now they're hard casting reviving the ast. This is going to be a situation where it's like, okay, a paladin should really start thinking about casting Clemency and making sure that we actually get to the point where the healers are alive. And Clemency in and of itself is a very powerful heal. It is 1200 potency baseline, and then you can shoot that up to 5 times on people. But when you add in Requiescat, that boosts it by 50%, now that becomes a 1800 potency heal with no cast time that you can use while moving, and you're basically shotgunning healing onto the team, and it's definitely, when you have the shit hit the fan, it is gonna save your party. So between Hallowed Ground, Cover, Clemency, and all of this, the Paladin is pretty good in terms of unique utility to it. Now I want to talk about the rotations of tanks and get that out of the way. And so all of them are muscle memory based. All of them are going to have a set rotation. You're not going to be getting things like massive procs. Like if you come from Bard or Dancer, you're not going to be getting that same feeling here with tanks. What I am going to compare the rotations on is going to be on 3 axes. We are going to have rotational complexity, which I do realize is largely opinion based and people may disagree, but it's based off of my experience with the tanks. Then it's going to be speed of the rotation and whether it is a big burst rotation or more cyclical 60-second rotations. This isn't to say, I need to disclaimer this isn't to say that any of these are bad necessarily, but if you are wanting something that's a little bit slower with a little bit more methodology behind it, then you would want to play that as your playstyle preference. If you don't want to play something fast, don't feel the need to play something fast. I promised that I was going to apologize less, but I'm really worried I'm going to offend offend people, but I swear it's not trying to offend anyone, it's just choices. So Dark Knight and Warrior for the most part follow a 1-2-3 rotation that builds up gauge, and then they spend this builder spender for high power attacks like Fell Cleave or Blood Spiller. Then they get explosive burst phases with Inner Release and Delirium. Warrior really kind of stops at that point. Dark Knight, on the other hand, is a little bit more intensity because they do build further on that, with their MP bar being used for Edge of Shadow or weaving in off-global cooldown abilities like Salted Earth, Carve and Split, and Abyssal Drain. Now those two tanks that share a lot of similarities in their rotation I'm going to put to the side, and now we are looking at the other two, which are Paladin and Gunbreaker, that also share a lot of similarities themselves. You can almost think about it like a 2-2 split. Paladin and Gunbreaker are both going to follow 60-second cycles where they enter various phases. The Paladin goes through what I will call a physical window at 0 seconds to roughly 30 seconds in. I know Fight and Flight is 25 seconds, guys, but work with me here, guys. This physical window then immediately goes into the Requiescat window, which is 4 bursts of mobile ranged magical damage attacks that is going to end in the mobile ranged Confiteor attack, which is a 5 GCD combo. Which is also something to note is that the Paladin, relative to the other tanks in their rotation, is far more mobile. They are capable of being away from the target and not losing DPS, so this is definitely something to note. But within the rotations, the Paladin is going to be weaving in Circle of Scorn, Spirits Within off the global cooldown. The physical rotation involves a divide between the damage over time effect, Goring Blade management, and then going into Royal Authority into 3 Atonement physical burst combo, which makes the Paladin, relative to the other tanks in this category, very involved in this rotation. Now, the Gunbreaker is similar to the Paladin in that it has a rotation on a 60-second cycle with 30-second intervals in their Gnashing Fang combo that is an extremely fast flurry of on-global cooldown abilities, which are going to be weaved in with the off-global cooldown continuation ability. And yes, the ability is actually called continuation, I'm not joking. But you also have off-global cooldown abilities like Blasting Zone, Bow Shock, and damage over time effect management with Sonic Break and Bow Shock, and this all combines together to make the Gunbreaker, in my opinion, the most involved rotation of the tanks. I'll actually put it right beside Paladin here. But also with the Gnashing Fang combo, it's extremely fast paced. I've seen people fumble on this combo, so if you say something, say you like the Machinist's Heat Blast Burst phase, you're going to enjoy this combo a lot. I definitely get the same feeling from that. So now, personal take section, which is highly opinionated, is that any of the tanks are really enjoyable and extremely strong. It's all going to be playstyle preference. There's obviously Paladin that I prefer as my off tank when I'm playing it or when I'm having it in my group, but generally speaking, my favorite tanks to heal as a main tank is going to definitely be well-played Gunbreakers, Warriors, and Dark Knights. But if we're talking about pugging in a party finder, like how to say, there is going to be no contest that I will prefer a Dark Knight or a Gunbreaker, which is going to win by a landslide, because Warrior's healing can result in a significant amount of overhealing, which is going to be a waste. But on the flip side, in a coordinated group, that a Warrior is going to do an insane amount of healing, to the point where as a healer, it's very hands-off. I don't really need to worry about a Warrior that I know will use their skills. So Warrior is going to heal themselves. But in a party finder group, that's not something that I can rely on. In fact, when I have tried to rely on it, I usually find that my tank gets crushed like a pop can. Now, when it comes to my preferences of playing a tank, my preference is going to almost always be for faster-paced gameplay. Like, I play a lot of Machinist, I play a lot of Bard, I need that fast-paced gameplay. Which leads me to the Gunbreaker and Paladin being my tank preferences to play, as tight 60-second rotations really feel good to me. There's no denying that Fell Cleave spam with that big burst window feels amazing. Guys, don't think that I'm hating on Warrior here, like, it feels good. But when you're asking me for my opinion, I am almost always going to prefer the Gunbreaker Paladin here. Anyhow, that is all for this video, and I hope that this helps everyone out with choosing what tanks to pick, or even just learning what tanks we have and what they really do. But that last section was just my thoughts and opinions, and I'm actually genuinely curious, like, what tanks do you like playing, either as or with, and kind of like why? Because I'm always curious, like, what do you like and why? Because it's like people can just be like, oh, Warrior, but I'm like, but why? And I'm like, because I don't need to heal. I love them. Yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you so much and have a great day.